Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the Moms Like Me podcast. We are on a roll this week. I'm so excited to be back in the seat with so many incredible guests. Today's guest is through one of our nonprofit partners, who also happens to be an incredible mom of quadruplets, which we will get to at the end here. But Monica Gellinas, thank you for joining us today. I'm so grateful for your time.
Well, I'm grateful to be here, Jordan. Thank you.
For people that don't know you, Monica, you work for an incredible nonprofit called CC4C. So I'd love for you to just quickly share a little bit more about what the organization does so
Okay.
people have a little bit more context.
Sure. So, Cheyenna's Champions for Children. We're a nonprofit that serve and uplift children and families that have rare and diagnosed conditions. We serve families all through the state of Texas. We were founded in 2012 because Cheyenna, who is actually also my niece, she was born with first she was undiagnosed and then had a rare condition as an infant. And so it was through her journey, her mom navigating the journey of trying to find first a diagnosis, just going through extreme isolation and just feeling devastated by not being able to have an answer, but also day by day seeing her infant struggle. Eventually, her mom, Talia Frazier, our founder, had to go outside the box of traditional medicine, and she found a diagnosis and a cure. And so that was truly a miracle, because we know now that we've been serving families with rare and undiagnosed children that isn't always the case. But Cheyenne is thriving now, and she's actually serving on our advisory council in CC4C and giving back. So that just kind of gives me chills.
Yeah.
And so since then, Talia made it her mission to create a community where these families and children can come for support. And so in 2012, we began our journey to really provide and uplift the families, the entire family. And so CC4C, we stand by the mom, the dad, the siblings, if there are any in the family, and the rare child. So we've created our programs and our events to be able to wrap around the entire family, because we know, especially myself as a mom, that everyone in the family contributes to the well-being of the entire family. So what we do for one child affects the entire family. What we do for the mom affects the entire family.
And I think typically when you think of an entire family, you think of mom, dad, siblings. But you're such a perfect example that when you say affect the whole family, you're the aunt. And so it affected you very, very dearly. And so I think that you're such a perfect representation of what you mean by that. So providing the resources, it sounds like you wish you had as playing the aunt figure, potentially one step removed from everyday life, but still very much in the mix and very much wanting to be helpful.
Exactly. Exactly. Because, as we create relationships with people within the family and outside of the family, we recognize that there's, an entire community of people that have specific resources in order to contribute. And they all may be different, they're creative. And so what we do is we try to just bring all those together. And then, each of us doesn't do the entire program. We really value all the different skill sets from our community to help us uplift these children.
Describe to people who don't have a child with a rare disease or an undiagnosed disease, what is it like to kind of live in this ambiguity, the unknown? I know it's been quite some time, but do you remember what it was like at the beginning with her?
Well, I remember when Cheyenne was like 2 to 3 years old, and we would be together as a family and we would go to a restaurant. For example, this was before she was diagnosed, and she actually was not able to absorb sucrose and fructose. So she felt like she was starving all the time. So she would eat everything inside. And so when we would gather as a family, she was constantly moving, constantly uneasy, and, what a typical mom would describe their child as being just fussy and uncomfortable, but it was extreme. And so they weren't allowed to really go out very much, or just to take her to, just like a church nursery, because she would, go through the trash and try to eat what was in the trash, or she just felt like she was starving. So it was very stressful. And I think the main emotion was just like frustration and anxiety and fear. One, will this ever end? Sometime I know when my children were young and they got sick with the flu, I knew that that would end after, a few days.
Yeah.
But with a child with a rare condition or an undiagnosed, there is no end in sight to them all. And so that feeling of like, oh my gosh, when will this end? And how am I going to help my child? Of feeling like a deep sense of helplessness and powerlessness. And that I remember just feeling like, what's going to happen to her?
Yeah.
So that sense of uncertainty of the future, or will we ever be able to get help, and where will the help come from? Because so many of our families, the avenues that they think are going to help them are unable to help them. And then you get into the cost of all those treatments if you do finally find a diagnosis. Our family spend from 5,000 to 60,000 a year in medical expenses. That's just medical expenses. And so if you multiply that, like a mom thinking, okay, maybe in 5 years we'll get help, and you multiply that out, that's a huge, huge mountain to climb.
Yeah,
And
and no family, regardless of your existing circumstance, I shouldn't say no. There are very few exceptions to where that amount of money doesn't have play a very meaningful impact on how you live your life and the decisions you have to
exactly.
make day to day. No
Right.
one was prepared. Your savings don't account for the situation.
Right. And that you used a good word, prepared. It's like, how do you prepare for that? Because a lot of times the family, I remember, was just like living in the moment. Like you're reacting and dealing with real time in the moment changes right in front of your eyes that you're trying to solve. So what you're experiencing one day may not even be the same experience the day after.
Yeah, and I think I agree, and I think that what you're shining a light on too, which is if you don't have a child or a family member with a rare disease or something of this sort, to your point, when certain things happen to your children, this too shall pass. I think it's a lot of how we survive as moms. We survive as moms because we know that these stages are temporary. And I
Right.
think moms get better as they have more children, not because they're better people, but it's because you have a frame of reference. So what
Mm-hmm.
you're describing is kind of that perpetual ambiguity
Yes.
being very, very daunting and emotionally exhausting. That
Mm-hmm.
to me is as you talk about that, like painting that picture of kind of that pit in the stomach that all moms are familiar with, but kind of that pit never going away.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And what are the effects of the long-term pit in your stomach? What are those effects on you emotionally and physically over time? And how does that affect your relationships with your husband or your family or your friends? And do you even have time to spend with friends that can help you just for
Mhm.
you? Like we have a tribe for moms and a tribe for dads, and our moms get together once a month and we create different experiences for them, whether it's a dinner or a coffee time or a wellness evening or flower arranging or organizing. We just bring them together. And, we've had moms tell us that is their only time each month that they get for themselves.
Right. And that's it sounds like what you've done is you've cultivated a community for them of like-minded shared experiences, which is so
Hmm.
hard to find.
Hmm.
Because again, the nature of rare diseases is rare, so not a lot of people
Yes.
can relate to the life that you're
That.
living, and even probably amongst each other, it's very different.
Hmm.
Different challenges, but everyone is still kind of going through this, again, perpetual ambiguity of, "Will my child be okay? How do we progress and also be grateful all at
Right.
the same time?" Which I think is
Mhm.
something we all struggle with. Do you remember, Monica, at the beginning when the family was trying to figure out, what is happening with Cheyenne? How do we move forward here? What were some of the things that you did as the aunt that provided relief for the family? Because as you know, part of what makes me tick, part of what drives me is providing insights and perspectives to supporters that just like
Yeah.
families don't go to school knowing that they're going to have a kid with a certain ailment, we're also not taught how to support people in these unique
Right.
circumstances. So I'm curious, what was your experience? And kind of the second question to that is like, What did you learn as a result of those efforts that you now share with other people?
Well, I think the most powerful thing I remember doing is just listening. In my experience personally, in my own challenges in life, and what I saw Talia and her husband walk through with Cheyenne is they needed listening ears. They needed support, not fixing. And so a lot of times I would just listen. I wasn't on staff with Cheyenne as Champions for Children. And obviously, as a family member, being present and available, I remember just offering to do other things to support her outside of the household, whether it's errands or taking care of her sister and just being available, like really showing up, not just saying, let me know how I can help you. I think that's a very difficult question for families in crisis or even long-term illnesses. Sometimes they cannot stop long enough to assess how they need help. So offering like a menu of helpful ways so they could actually pick like A, B, C, or D. Like, do you want me to clean or do you want me to run errands? Do you want me to cook a meal? Do you want me to take the sibling out or just sit or bring you coffee or something? Like offering ideas. And then because they may not even know what they need.
Give them multiple
Yeah,
choice,
multiple
not
choice.
fill in the
I
blank.
used to love multiple choice tests other than like essay tests because you get your brain connect easier. And so I actually have implemented that into our CC4C model. I learned that listening is so powerful and it's so loving because as a culture, listening to me is an art that needs to be taught and practiced. And then my background is in life coaching and positive psychology. And so I've learned how powerful that can be to someone. And so I would say I definitely did that. And I also learned to observe and just, follow intuition and trust myself if I got an idea of like, oh, I'm going to, maybe I'll just drop off some flowers, or maybe I'll just send a text with something encouraging, or to follow those intuitive thoughts because I think we know, our intuition will tell us things. And if we listen, it can only help someone. And we may think, oh, well, that's kind of out of the box or that seems weird, but it's telling us that for a reason.
Yeah. I'm so curious, were you playing this role before or while you were also a mom?
I was also a mom. So my quadruplets were born in 1996.
Okay.
So they're getting ready to turn 29. So Cheyenne is their little cousin.
Their little cousin.
Mm,
Wow. So
yeah.
it was like you taking care of 4 children and your niece from, I guess, like, more from afar. Wow. I mean, that's just tremendous.
So Cheyenne's mom, Talia, she's the daughter of my oldest brother. So I also took care of her when I was 12. I took care of her as a baby. So it's really interesting how I really notice like the thread of legacy going through generations of like, I took care of her and then we always were very close. She got married, had her first child, and then had Cheyenne and moved to Austin. We were all from New Mexico. Then eventually my 4 children and I moved to Austin. And so our lives have always been intertwined.
Yeah.
And this was all before CC4C.
I'm just so struck, I when I was reading your bio earlier today, you have this degree in education and specialty in learning for disabilities, and you have played this caregiver role to your nieces, and you're a mom of 4. It's like, and you, as you said earlier, you have a background or a specialty in life coaching. So in some ways, stepping into this executive director role at CC4C, it was like a role designed for you. Do you ever feel like that?
Well, I never thought of it like that, but now that my kids are older and I'm in this role, I've had the opportunity to look back and kind of see there was like a thread of preparation for every role that I've played. And each role was like a stepping stone of either building a skill set or growing or healing or my own personal growth. And they culminate into different roles that I've taken throughout the seasons of my life. So I feel like, I taught kids with learning disabilities and loved children when I was little. I loved dolls. I loved the nurturing. And then eventually I had to quit teaching because I got pregnant with quadruplets and had to go on bed rest. And so then I had my own little classroom of 4 children to raise, which was really very rare at that time. In 1996, I couldn't even find anything on the internet to support me. There were no groups, very, very little. That was just when the internet was coming, to be.
Yeah. Wow.
And so even that taught me, how to meet the needs and to, climb a mountain that seemed unsurmountable to me at the time because I had struggled with infertility for 6 years and thought, I didn't think I would ever be able to have children. And
Wow.
then, raising my children and then moving to Austin as a single mom and raising them through high school. And then that's when I became a life coach and got my positive psychology certificate and self compassion. So I dove into the well being aspect of life. I practiced all my tools on my kids. and and then I integrated that and started working for CC4C, and I had my own coaching business. So I was just able to integrate those into the programs.
Monica, who supported you in that phase of life, raising quadruplets and single mom? Obviously, again, you're well researched, well studied, and you're kind of like a student of the game. And how did you build a support system around you so that not only could you survive, you could thrive in those
Mhm.
days, weeks, and months?
Yes, well, that's a great question. I've always been the type of person that received help. I wasn't afraid to ask for help, especially as a mom. I was like, I need all the help I can get. So, one, I put myself in a position to receive. My family, I come from a family of 8 children. My sisters are my closest friends, and my niece, Talia, is, my best friend here in Austin. So I had family support. The deep foundation of my life has always been my faith. And so I have a very strong personal faith relationship with God. And so I leaned heavily on that on a daily basis and put myself in groups, women's groups and studies as I could to be able to build relationships with women that were ahead of me,
Mm.
women that I could learn from. And then I started sharing what I would learn with younger women. And so as I received, I was also giving, which just made me grow more. Also, I've learned to practice gratitude for the past 25 years. And I knew that there were certain tools that could help me in my emotional state and my emotional healing, especially, from a divorce to single motherhood, to figuring out raising teens. And so I would, read, study, do workbooks. I'm more of on the introvert side, so I would have a lot. So I would make sure I carved out time for like alone time in silence, journaling, and then I knew the people I could trust, like to pour out my heart, and they would listen to me. So there's that listening again, you know.
Yeah. I often joke with people, there are the friends that you have where you can go where you can't get very deep, and
Yep.
then there are friends that you can touch the bottom of the ocean with, and it seems like you very quickly identified who are the friends that you could go to the bottom of the ocean with,
Yes.
because it's not a matter of quantity, it really is a matter of, like, the quality of those relationships, to know
Uh-huh.
how to listen and to know when to sit back. And to know also when they say, "Okay, it's time. Let's take a breath and let's move forward."
Mhm. Mhm. And I had friends that challenged me, like, "You need to get help in this area, and I'm gonna give you till, 2 days to actually ask for that." Like, that type of a friend.
I wanna touch one more time on the gratitude piece because I know that that's a really big part
Mhm.
of your kind of teachings and just, again, how you've navigated your own life. What are some of the tips you have for people that I hear this often, by the way. I'm super grateful. I want to be more grateful of the things I have, especially in today's world where you're
Mhm.
constantly being sold and told that it's never enough. So
Right.
what are some of those practices that someone listening could start to incorporate in their day to day or week to week that
Mm.
helps to show that gratitude, which hopefully will then just amplify
Sure.
the way that they look at their own life and their own circumstances?
Well, I think starting very simple. I usually tell clients or people, friends, just write down 3 gratitudes a day. And if you don't have time to write them down, then speak them out loud. You can do that while you're driving. You can do that with your children, you can do it at the dinner table, but to develop a daily practice, whether it's 1 gratitude, I always say 3, and then do an acknowledgement for yourself, like, I'm grateful for my breath, and then I acknowledge myself for starting a new practice. Hundreds of ways to practice gratitude, but I think if we choose one practice and do that over a period of time, then we'll start to feel a difference in our well-being. It's scientifically proven. Also, sending a gratitude text maybe once a week or a gratitude letter once a month to a person, you'd be amazed at how uplifting that is. Just, I'm thankful for you because you've been such a loyal friend.
I love that.
That takes literally 2 seconds to text that. I've written gratitude letters and just randomly sent them to people, and that's also a great practice. I have a little tool called the gratitude hack for people that struggle with anxiety or ruminating thoughts or fear, because our brain cannot feel anxious and grateful at the same time. So in those moments of challenge, or like your brain is just firing away, or you're caught in a cycle of anxiety, if you just say, I'm grateful for the sky. I'm grateful, that I have a job. I'm grateful, you know, that I'm breathing right now. Your brain will shift immediately from anxiety because it cannot have those in the same space. So I call that a gratitude hack, and it definitely works. And I've tested it hundreds of times.
Ugh.
And then we do a gratitude tradition in the fall. I do with the kids, we do a gratitude tree for the whole month of November, like a little Christmas tree. And everyone that comes over writes something they're grateful for and hangs it on the tree. And I made their friends do it, anybody, visitors. So just creating some type of gratitude tradition once a year is very powerful and can be really fun.
I love that. That is great practical advice, some of which I will begin to incorporate. I love that. Because
Thank
again,
you.
so often we go through life and we don't always know how people feel about us. We think
Right.
we know, and you surround yourself with people that make you feel good. But you're so
Mhm.
right, especially as an adult. We don't write in yearbooks anymore. You're not
I
being
know.
called over the So as adults, a really nice reminder that you can
It
still
is.
do those things. And you're right, when people say things like that, it is so
Mhm.
uplifting.
It is.
You feel so seen. You feel so
Exactly.
appreciated, and
Mhm.
that smallest gesture, I feel like those are the things I love. I love tips like that because it's so easy to pass it on.
It is.
It's
It
so
is,
easy to
and
say, "I
it's
just got
simple.
this," and, now I wanna tell the 5 people I love, whether it's a sibling, a sister-in-law, brother-in-law, or a friend. It makes it
Mhm.
so easy to pass it on, and that's a very we need more of that. I love that.
Exactly.
I love that.
Mhm.
Well, Monica, as we wrap up, first of all, I wanna say thank you. I mean,
Well,
truly,
correct.
your story, as I said earlier, it was almost like you were designed for all of this, and I know that kind of I don't mean that in a way that belittles all of the hardships that you've had to navigate, and again, what a blessing it is for these families that you've served through CC4C to know that they have a leader that
Yeah.
can both sympathize and empathize at the same time with a lot of the challenges they face. And that's
Thank
unique. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to share, if someone lives in Texas and or
Mhm.
knows somebody that can benefit from the great sources and resources that you provide, where can they find more information on y'all?
Oh, sure. Well, you can definitely find us on the website, cc4c.org, and that shows all the ways that we support our families. It gives ways to join our community through our newsletter that will connect you to resources, to events, to know how to help us, how to share our mission. We have our stories of our children, we have videos, and that's the easiest way to connect with us, and we'll respond
Awesome.
to any inquiries. So just thank you so much. This has just been so fun and
Good.
uplifting to me.
Good. It always feels good to get your story out. People tell me, I didn't realize how much I wanted to share all that.
Mhm.
It's truly
Great.
my favorite way of connecting with people. So thank you for allowing me to go deeper, to learn more about your story, and look forward to many more conversations, Monica, as Support Now and CC4C serve more families. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jordan.